Hey guys, Tony DiNitto here with RouteTycoon. Pretty excited today. I've got the owner and founder of GroundCloud that's going to be joining us to chat about the massive benefits that he is bringing FedEx contractors in terms of their operations on a day-to-day basis. And even though I focus primarily on the due diligence training aspect, helping people understand the business, whether it's a good fit for them, and understand the intricacies that are specific to FedEx, I'm also looking at the operational aspects as well, just to be able to see around that curtain and to be able to sort of see how things are operating, how they're going to change in the future. And then, of course, that also affects our due diligence. And so Dave is going to be talking about really three massive benefits that he is bringing contractors. One, of course, is dealing with the new safety protocols and procedures that are coming from FedEx. Of course, not a whole lot of people are talking about this because it's not mandated quite yet. It's going to happen. And if you're prepared for that, you're going to be in a much better spot. And the other two parts really are the compliance and dealing with the safety aspects in terms of how are we complying with the new VEDR systems and things like that that are coming out is going to be really, really important. And then finally, and the thing that really got me to notice, even though those two things are incredible, is the productivity aspect of it. And that's really dealing with the routes being optimized, which has been an exceedingly difficult problem for a lot of contractors to be able to handle in terms of how their drivers really learn the routes, how they manage to go through in some sort of efficient loop when they operate those routes. And so Dave is going to be able to chat with us about a lot of those things today. Super excited. He's very gracious to spend some time with us to share this, and of course also gracious to create this product to begin with, which a lot of contractors are desperate to have. And anyway, Dave, pleasure to have you here. If you want to go ahead and just kind of get us started, maybe you can kind of tell us about how you kind of got started in all this, and we'll just take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Tony, thank you so much for this opportunity. Thanks for taking out some of your time as well. I really appreciate that, and you know, all the things you're doing as well. So, just a brief little backstory on me. Let's just say I'm a total geek, right? That's my nature. That's what I am. I'm comfortable in my own skin, but I've always been a geek. My dad was an engineer, career Motorola. So I have an engineering degree from University of Minnesota, but what I did is just a little bit after graduating from college, I started my own software company that is still in existence. And so this company has been around for about 30 years, and that is, I mean, you know, in the IT space, that's a long time for a software company. So I'm pretty proud of that. Still doing well. You know, you pivot a number of times over an eternity in the IT world, software world, that long, but we've had a lot of success in that company in terms of supply chain systems, supply chain security. I've got a number of patents in my name from that space. And so what happened is in 2015, everything on that company was just sort of on autopilot, doing really well. And I was just, you know, I'm too young to retire. I was kind of looking for maybe starting something else. And so a buddy of mine is he's a financial guy. He's a money manager out in out in the west coast of California. And what happened is he absolutely convinced me that the FedEx world was the place to be. And he had gotten into FedEx contracting, and he was doing really well. And so he was saying, Dave, you got to do this. It's a great industry. It's recession proof. He showed me how FedEx basically grew through the big crash of 08, 09, and I talked to contractors, they're like, yeah, we did. So I thought that was amazing. And so with his help, I decided to get into FedEx contracting, and I had a war chest of funds to buy routes and trucks and everything. And so this would have been, now we just got into about January of 2016 now, where I was seriously meeting with FedEx, contractor relations. But I also decided that I was going to meet with some local contractors. I befriended some right? About 3 of them in my area. And this was just to sponge off of them because, I know basic business stuff, but let's face it, I didn't know. I'm one of those newbies, right? I didn't know jack about the specifics of working with FedEx in my area, which is the Minneapolis area. And so I befriended these guys, and I was just buying them lunches and drinks and stuff, and they were totally cool. They're like, "Sure, we'll take your money." No, no, they're great group of people. They took pity on me, I think. But I remember I'm in going into a meeting with contractor relations in early 2016, right after peak was over, and I'll never forget this. I'm in the terminal, and I'm watching these drivers go out with paper printed turn-by-turns. And I just I looked at the CR guy and I said, "You've got to be kidding me," right? Because this is 2016. Everyone's got Google Maps and all this stuff. And here's the thing. My other company is in supply chain systems and security. And I know that logistics and IT go hand in hand. So I just totally assumed that FedEx was just totally equipping contractors with awesome technology. And so I couldn't believe that when I saw that. So my next meeting with my new contractor friends, I just said, "Hey guys, tell me about all the tech that FedEx provides you." And they just basically busted out laughing and said, what technology, Dave? What do they're kind of looking at each other. This boy's got a lot to learn here, right? So I called up my CR guy that I was interfacing with, and by this time, I had the FedEx contract. You ever seen it printed out? It's about that high. I had that thing with my attorneys, and I was really, really serious about this. And so I called him up and I said, "Dude, tell me about the tech story. What kind of technology does FedEx provide?" And basically, his words were this. He basically said, "Dave, what little technology we provide, we're taking it all away." And I was like, "What?" This really shocked me. I'm thinking, how can an operation do all that they need to do without any technology? But here's the thing. Once I discovered the reason behind it, it all made sense. And that is FedEx, of course, has had a number of not only class action lawsuits regarding what's called joint employer liability. That's where when you have a contractor that retroactively says they were actually an employee. And, I'm not saying whether FedEx, quote unquote, had this coming or not. Basically they were vulnerable. And I researched this, and it's just, you can Google this. They had lost billions of dollars in terms of these class action lawsuits, but the IRS also was after them, because if the IRS can declare that contractors were actually and retroactively were employees, man, then they owe huge amounts, just absolute mountains of money in terms of back taxes, fines, penalties, interest. So massive losses. So it all made sense, because then I understood they have to see, there needs to be that wall of separation between a contractor and what defines as an employee, right? So it has to be it's perfectly legal for someone to hire a contractor and say, "I want you to do A, B, and C." But the problem is, the more that they tell them exactly how to do it, when to do it, and specifically to say, "You've got to do it with our tools," that wall crumbles down. And so then they become really open to these joint employer lawsuits. And so I also have a buddy of mine who is the head lawyer for General Mills. And I talked to him about this, and he literally said, absolutely, this is one of the biggest issues for large companies. So it all made sense. And so I go back to my newfound contractor friends, and this time I say to them, what if? I just said, what if there was a low-cost monthly subscription type of technology service that you had, say, mounted iPads or tablets in your vehicles, but that did all of these things, that did things like safety training, that did things like trip inspections, that did things like route planning and driver tracking and speed limit tracking and vehicle maintenance tracking, and basically they just did turn by turns for the drivers. And they just literally said that would be a bleeping dream come true. In fact, 2 of the 3 of them, I'm not kidding, they literally begged me to become investors. They said, please, if you need any money, please take our money now. And okay, I might not be the brightest bulb on the tree, but I'm like, okay, if potential customers are literally begging to become investors, I'm like, okay, there's definitely a need here. And so after about 4 or 5 months of like pretty intense research, I found there's nothing out there. I mean, what little quote unquote vendors or technology that were out there was just really below par, not good stuff at all. I talked to a lot of people, and so I made the decision to not get into the contracting like I was originally going to do, and instead I used that capital to basically just go in and invest. And the cool thing though is that I had a team of guys. We knew how to do this. This is exactly the type of stuff that we've built in the past. I mean, for example, we built a massive track and trace system for a worldwide pharma company that is, it's cloud-based. It's using large-scale, enterprise-scale stuff. We have a lot of experience in that type of technology that, with web applications and mobile apps, that sort of thing, in order to build this. So, I was in a position where I saw there was a huge need. Potential customers or users were begging me to do this, and had the ability and resources to do it. So here's what's really cool about this whole story is that from day 1 of development, these 3 contractors were giving me all of their input, all of their pain points. And not only that, as we built the system, they continued to look at it and test it, and they'd be like, okay, this part over here, Dave, that's really cool, but this part over here, that sucks, it's awful, you need to change it. And, continuously doing that. And so, that started in about the summer of 2016. And we just continued on development for pretty much a full year. So by the time, what we then did is I basically snuck my way into, FedEx had a nationwide expo for all contractors, well, most contractors. I found out they didn't invite everyone. I don't know why, but they had a huge expo and basically kind of a little mini trade show for vendors at Soldier Field in Chicago. And so that was in July of 2017. And so that's when we sort of opened up to all contractors. But by then, we had these other 3 contractors totally using the system on a daily basis, loving it big time. Even though, the services that we did then were, not even half of what we do now, but they were already loving the system. And so, we put up shop there. We built a trade booth at that show. And I'm not kidding. That show, the official hours were like 9 to 5. Starting at like 8:30, we were basically mobbed in the morning. And the whole day, I mean, just wave after wave, we just had nothing but tremendous interest. And I mean, I was 30 feet away from the washroom across the hallway. I was not able to get away even to make it to the bathroom the whole time. It was just wild. So that was really fun. That was amazing. So and we've been going gangbusters ever since, and growing and building in new features. All I do all day long is talk to contractors, and I love it because not only are they expressing what they love about our system, but also how we can improve it and what direction to take the company in. And as a developer myself, I know what we can do, what's realistic, what we can't do, and I have that ability to guide my team. So it's been going really well, really exciting.
Wow, yeah, and that's you bring up a really good point that you are also the developer, and a lot of times, and I think that what happens with a lot of these types of programs or services, especially software, is that the developer knows what can be done, exactly like what you know, but the sales guy doesn't. So he goes off and he promises all these sorts of things, and then goes back and says, hey, can we do this? No, we can't. Like, that's impossible.
Exactly.
And you have all sorts of problems.
Exactly.
But if you can
Right.
see both sides of that equation and say, hey, I understand the contractors, I understand their pain points, I chat with these guys continuously, we've got an iterative process here, and I'm basically also the developer, it puts you in a very unique spot. And that is exactly why I think that you guys have started to grow as quickly as it has been. Because let me tell you, other people have attempted to do what you're doing. And, you know, like I say, it's great. I'm glad that people are out there trying. But right now, from what I've seen, and who knows, maybe it's out there and I just haven't seen it, but I haven't seen anything else come close, especially in terms of the route planning and the optimization on that. And like going back to what you were talking about earlier with, you know, here we are in, you know, 2016, like everybody's using these things called, you know, the turn by turns, which is basically just this manifest that gets printed out in the morning by FedEx. And it basically used to list out all of the addresses to go to, and it would give directions on how to get to each of those addresses. And the problem is, and I've got firsthand experience on dealing with these turn by turns. The issue is that they work, but they don't work all the time. And so whenever you have this situation where it breaks every 5-10 days or so, and you're having massive service failures because the computer's gotten glitched up into things and it's got you going around in this terribly inefficient manner, that's not okay. I don't care if it only happens 10% of the time. 10% failure in this that's not okay at all. And so anyway, I thought that that's a pretty good point to bring up. And just like, I mean, you nailed it on the head talking about with the fact that, you know, FedEx has to have that separation of, you know, their contractors and them, you know. And so it's not like FedEx is intentionally just wanting to throw contractors, you know, to the curb or something like that and tell them to fend for themselves.
Right, exactly.
That's what's kind of legally required for them. And they're doing that.
It really is.
To really be able to save the contractors. Because, you know, again, like several years ago, like I'm sure it's a risk to a certain degree right now. If you read the shareholders annual report, they mention that it is still a possibility for contractors to turn into, you know, employees. Now, that's also listed next to nuclear war in terms of the risk. So I would say that it's fairly low, but I think several years ago, it was a major issue. And so the fact that FedEx is trying to preserve that and trying to keep that integrity in the line and the separation, I think has actually been a great thing. And also one thing that you mentioned about the recession, I was actually a contractor throughout those years as well. And people are saying, oh, how's that FedEx route that you bought? You know, is it getting hit by the recession? It's like, what recession? You kidding me? The avalanches of boxes. Like, that's not what the issue is. And it's kind of like, you know, when, in terms of like this recession idea, is like when things go well, people want to buy more stuff and they buy crazy things online. And when things aren't going so well, they can't go out to the local retailer. Oh, they got to find something cheap on eBay. No matter what, we got you. You're going to be shipping more stuff one way or the other.
Exactly.
And that's
my buddy.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say real quick, my buddy, what convinced me about the massive opportunity of just this industry segment was that he found that, and this buddy of mine out on the West Coast, he's a financial genius, and he basically calculated that it would take a recession of like basically to cut the U.S. economy in half. We're talking Great Depression times 5 in order to stop FedEx from growing, right? Because of that industry segment. It's because everybody knows it's all e-commerce. It's because everything is going that massive shift of retail to e-commerce. It's all shifting. And so even though we might have another recession, whatever, the overall growth of e-commerce is just on this massive growth path that nothing's going to stop it. And so that's why, you know, some people even say, well, what about Amazon? You know, they're coming after FedEx, aren't they? Because they're building out this big 3PL network. Of course they are. But the thing is, the pie is not a fixed sized pie. It's the overall pie is growing every year. And so that's why these third-party logistics companies like FedEx are going to continue to do very well. And it's, like I said, what a great industry segment to be in, because it's basically recession proof. And so that's what attracted me to the whole world here, based upon my buddy's input. But also, it all makes perfect sense. But also FedEx is a good company to work with. He found that so long as, if you're a contractor, so long as you do two things: number one, you are a safe operator, and number two, you make service. You are an efficient operator. You will do well. And that's it. That's really, it's not rocket science. If you can do those two things, you will make money and you will do well. So FedEx will like you. You'll get along, because and then conversely, if you're not safe or you're not making service, that's when the problems are gonna happen with the relationship. That's where contractors fail. So that's why everything that, and knowing that's what I went into becoming a contractor. I knew that from my buddy and other contractors, and I said, and got absolute confirmation on that. But that also has shaped everything that we do at GroundCloud. It's all about those two things. It's about safety and efficiency. And of course, there's also compliance with law, with contract, with the FedEx contract. Again, you do those three things, you're gonna do well. You're gonna be successful. But those that don't embrace that and don't embrace an integrated tech solution that brings that about, ultimately those are going to be the ones that fail and or get eaten up. There's going to be a lot of consolidation in the industry. In a few years ago, there were something like 6,500 contractors, but a lot of folks in the know think that number is going to reduce to at least probably less than half of that when all of the dust settles. So, there's going to be winners and losers here. Now, some people are just going to win by selling and getting out. That's cool. But really, it's going to be the difference, I'm absolutely convinced, are those that embrace the high efficiency automation integrated systems like there's only one. So it's just GroundCloud. Those that embrace that are going to do well. Those that resist and say, there's people out there that think of GroundCloud as just a glorified Garmin, which is absolutely not true. We are so much more than that. Now, we do navigation better than anyone. We can demonstrate that, no doubt about it. But it's the overall integrated system that now, with the integrated VEDR, to meet that requirement, those are going to be the companies. And already, those that have embraced us early they're growing tremendously. They're doing incredibly well. And so, like I said, that's going to be the dividing line between those that are successful and those that aren't.
Well, I think it's an important part that you brought up there with the fact that there has been resistance. And a lot of that, like on one side, obviously you see the contractors clamoring to get you to make this service, and it's been made and it's been improved and improved upon. On the other side, you got the guys that say, this thing's a glorified Garmin. Why don't I just go to MapQuest and enter in all of the stops there? And a couple of problems there is, one is that a lot of those services, once you get over 30 or 40 stops, they don't provide it anymore because it breaks. It breaks tremendously. And so,
Exactly.
And so the other part of it is dealing with this idea of the resistance, that even if it was perfectly all laid out, we don't really need it. And so the thing is that I think in the earlier years, when people owned maybe one or two routes, which is the average contractor, a decade ago, as opposed to now, which is probably closer to 10 routes, you didn't have to be as efficient as possible. If you drove around in circles a few times, generally the owner-operator, it's not a big deal. You start to do those sorts of things at this point in the game, and I don't think it's going to be good for those guys that resist that. And by the time that they realize that it's too late, that they should have started to really pay attention to really maximizing as many parts of efficiency as they can, I think that it might be too late, because at that point, the profitability on their business may be level, right? And most of the profitability is increasing. So like a contractor that's not doing well at FedEx is probably like staying level. At that point in time, it's going to be difficult to potentially sell, or God only knows who knows what. So the point is that I that with where you are is just a fantastic spot. The other thing that you brought up is that it's not just the route optimization. Now, granted, I think that was a huge pain point. I think that it still is.
It is, no doubt about it. And we, like I said, we do that better than anyone. We can actually handle 500 stops. I mean, no one, even in their worst nightmare, would have a route that's that crazy. But we can handle it. And here's the thing: one of my other key things that I tell contractors is this: the more you can differentiate, the more that you can decrease your dependency on FedEx, the better you are. Now, FedEx, they've got hardworking people, no doubt about it, but everybody knows that FedEx sometimes goes down, right? So my point is, those customers that are on the GroundCloud system can literally do everything. They can literally scan boxes. We build the route. We can even tell how, even drivers how to load the truck if necessary, and literally get out the door. And so there have been many times where whether it's nationwide or even just regionally where FedEx has gone down, but GroundCloud users have been absolutely able to get their drivers out the door and finish their routes. It's amazing. Now, privately, I've even had some senior managers at a couple of places tell me off the record that we were basically their backup system. So that's awfully cool. So I think it's just awesome that we provide a true fail-safe solution, and literally our system is built upon Google Cloud. So it would take, you mentioned nuclear war before, but I think it would basically take North Korea is actually lobbying ICBMs towards us to bring down Google Cloud. So in which case you and I have bigger problems that we're worrying about than finishing our route at that point. So our system is incredibly resilient and reliable. It doesn't go down. So I think that's another huge factor. The other huge differentiating factor between us and like other vendors that would be out there is that all of GroundCloud's developments, which is me as well as there's 4 other guys that work for me, we are all internal. In other words, everything is developed in-house. And to my understanding, to the best of my knowledge, any other vendor out there, that's not true. In other words, they outsource stuff, and whether that's India or Russia, who knows? But here's the difference. See, at GroundCloud, the very same team that built the system is maintaining it in terms of daily operations. And that's critical, because if you are, really having your automation, your operations automated by GroundCloud, you want it to be up and reliable. And I cannot understand how anybody else can remotely do that unless they practice what's called DevOps. That's where the same development team is maintaining the operations. They're making sure everything's working properly. And, inevitably there is, this or that other, somebody else's service goes down. And now, getting it patched, fixed, workarounds in real time. And we can do that. So that's another huge thing that I firmly believe in. And, and I've had many contractors tell me that our system is effectively the value and the efficiency of a full BC. In other words, we're doing the work of a manager here. I mean, what is that worth? That, and the other big thing is the value of the contractor's company. It makes perfect sense, because if the more that you can automate operations in your business, the more valuable your company is, right? By definition, because if you were to sell your company, you are no longer there. So if you, as the contractor, are having to manually do all of these things, well, by definition, you are gone if you were to sell your business. And so that value of your business is way less than it should be. On the other hand, if you've got our system where you are automating all of these things, I mean, not only do you get the benefit of not having to do that and use your time more effectively elsewhere, but it increases the value of your business, because you won't be there, but so what? Our system will be. So your buyer will absolutely appreciate that. And so, people can, and that has been the case. We have absolutely had contractors tell us when they've just, they're retiring or whatever, but they're able to sell their business, and that sale went through cleanly, fast, and they got more money because their systems were automated with us. And that's really satisfying to me. I love that. I live for that, of hearing how contractors all the time, pretty much almost on a daily basis, will just say this or that is yet another game changer for them with our system. I love that. Or, how it helped their drivers, or how they're happier, or it made them more money, or it saved them from getting, dinged by this or that. And so, I love that. I love working with contractors. They're great people. They're the hardest working people I've worked with. I've worked with governments. I've worked with, big corporations, but especially FedEx contractors. They are the best people that I've worked with as a group. Hardworking. They're just so go get 'em attitude and get it done, and really good people. So it's been really satisfying.
It's cool to hear you say that, because I often have told clients that working with the other contractors in the terminal is like one of the best experiences when it comes to networking, because I tell people that obviously networking and knowing other contractors is a very valuable sort of thing. And sometimes people have the belief like, man, I'm getting away from this corporate America, so I don't have to do this ridiculous networking. I can just focus on my job. And the thing is it's not like you're networking to vie for some sort of promotion. Our areas are all legally protected. And so what you end up getting is this highly cooperative environment where people realize that they kind of can lean on each other to all succeed, and not one person's success is the other person's lack of success. Only one person gets a promotion or something like that, and it's not like that. And I think that on the other hand, just the general sort of personality type that seems to have gravitated towards the FedEx world, they tend to just be good people. Granted, not all the time. I've got a couple ideas where it's
of course
not all the time.
There's a bad apple out there too. Every once in a while you'll get a story of there's some guy that's just poaching somebody else's drivers. But basically karma tends to find them out when down the road they need something and no one's there to help them out because the guy's been acting like a jerk. But you're right. You're so right. By and large, contractors, I love that. The camaraderie. They're not competing against one another. So often they'll help each other out. They got a driver down or something. They'll cover a route. I love that. It's a and also for us, it's been so helpful because I don't have a sales force, and that's by design. My whole philosophy in building this system, as far as marketing goes, now I'm a geek, right? I'm a marketing genius. No way. That's not my wheelhouse. But this has been my philosophy, and that is this: build a kick-ass system and let people talk about it. That's it. And you know what? It's actually worked. And so, and what's really cool about that is it allows us to keep our pricing down, right? Because I don't have to pay for a sales force to go out there and like you said, who knows what kind of promises that a sales guy is going to make? I don't like that. I'm the one that talks to everyone. And we do have a support department that's because we've grown to the size where we need that, and I'm not available all the time, but I do support as well. Every one of us does support. But the cool thing is there's no sales force. It's just a group of mostly guys. We do have one woman working for us, but but we work as a team. We're all developers. All of us are engineers, but we all do support. And so if there's anything remotely, like if people have questions before they sign up, I'll talk to anyone. And I've talked to people, and I'll talk to people for hours. Even if they got 2 routes or we got 200. I once talked to someone, and I didn't even realize that after I talked to him for like 3 hours until he revealed that this guy more or less had about 200 routes, and I'm like, oh my goodness, but he was like, you never even asked that. I'm like, no, I'm not a great sales guy. I'm passionate about our system. I love how it helps contractors succeed. I love that. And I love that it also increases safety. And, that I'm personally vested in that. I was cycling with my wife, a few years ago, and she was hit from behind, and nearly killed her. and I had to watch all that, and it was because someone was distracted with a device, and it was horrific. And by the way, that's why sometimes people ask, well, how come you guys are standardized on tablets like this? Why don't you just everybody else is out there doing, hey, you don't have to buy a tablet, you can just use the driver's phone, isn't that great? Well, here's why that's not great. Because I don't care how often you tell your drivers, don't drive like this. Don't hold the phone in your hand and drive. But you know what? Everybody knows that's exactly what they do. Everybody knows it. Every contractor I've talked to, every single FedEx safety person I've talked to, they all know it's true. In fact, now that we have VEDR, we've already recorded our first, pretty significant crash. And guess what was happening? The driver was holding his phone, not our system, his own phone in his hand, and he literally turned right into a vehicle. I mean, it was like about as bad as it can get. And so the massive safety difference of our system is that because it's tablet based, these things, driver is too big to hold in their hand. It's going to be mounted, okay? It's mounted, and legally, that is considered part of the dashboard, right? And it is safe. Our user interface, it locks now when the driver is in motion, so they know that. They're not going to be futzing with it. And just like every modern vehicle has a moving map, and a touch screen, but, even there, it is actually legal to touch like one big button on an iPad as even underway. But even that we don't do. You can turn that off if it's like a manager. But I'm just saying, the difference is you will never have driver disqualifications because of our system, because it's tablet based. And, and so first and foremost, it's a safety issue. You're not going to have drivers crashing in. But keep in mind that in the past, drivers got away with driving with their phone in their hand because there were no cameras. Well, guess what? That's all changing now with the VEDR standard. There's going to be cameras on all of these drivers, and so it's going to be a huge problem. And when you're driving a P1200 or whatever, that phone, if it's a phone, okay, even if it's mounted on the dash, it's so far away and it's a small display, you can barely see anything. Versus, the iPad, much larger screen, it's mounted, you can actually see it. And but it's not distracting, and we also have things that we can do in our system that really makes it cool. Like I'm holding up on our system here, but an iPad, we can actually simultaneously display the overall map of all stops and part of the manifest that shows what's upcoming and turn by turns all on one screen. So don't try that on a phone because it's literally impossible. But so it's safer. It's also cheaper. Right now, Sprint came to us and is offering literally free iPads. Now that's only good through January 10th. So if you're watching this or listening to this after that, we'll see what they come up with. Maybe another carrier will step up. But even so, even after that, the iPads are much less expensive, but particularly, they are less expensive over time because cellular data on tablets is half the price of what it is on smartphones. So you're getting the least expensive data, and you're getting it on a safe device, and the device itself is far less than buying a full phone. And so here's what I envision for the future. If you don't have GroundCloud, you might be paying for up to 3 network connections per vehicle. What's that? Well, number one, you've got some sort of navigation device if it's not ours. Number two, the VEDR system will have to, that's why the other systems, the other providers are very expensive because you're paying for, and they're all like $40 a month. We are just $25. Why is that? Because of the integration. But it's because, we're actually using the Wi-Fi on the tablet far cheaper, and it's already there. It's integrated. Way cheaper. It's way safer. And then lastly, you'd be paying for potentially on, let's say, the new scanner. So you could be paying for 3 network connections per vehicle. I mean, how horrifically inefficient is that? With our system, I think it makes so much more sense to have to pay for 1, right? Think of it as like literally there's one Wi-Fi hotspot on the vehicle, and that's in the iPad. And so that covers navigation, VEDR, and scanner. You know, you can Wi-Fi connect to that thing. So think about that. Instead of paying for 3 network connections, pay for 1. So, you know, ironically, our VEDR system, maybe we'll get into that a bit more, but we are simultaneously, and I can demonstrate this, we are by far the best technologically and by far the least cost. I mean, how often does that happen? I have 3 kids. I've got 3 daughters, and like, you know, when I got to buy stuff for them, it's always sort of a toss-up. Do I want quality or do I want low price? It's never, do I have a choice where I have both the highest quality and the lowest price at the same time? Well, it's actually what we've accomplished with our VEDR system because of the integration, and I am really proud of that.
Yeah, your pricing is unbelievable. Even if it goes up a bit, it's still pretty impressive there. One thing I want to jump back for just a quick second for where you mentioned that when the FedEx system goes down, that GroundCloud is still up, and some terminal managers even try to use that to keep that service level high in the terminal. People don't believe that happens. I've seen FedEx go down countless times. It's a real thing. It's not like, well, one time it happened, in the course of a year. No. It's a real thing, and I'm sure that they're trying to do things to improve that. But for people that haven't been in the FedEx world and think, how much does reliability matter? I'm sure everything else is. No. It does matter, and it matters a lot, and it's a real problem. Yeah. So. Anyway, I thought that was a good point. In terms of the VEDR, I think that let's take a step back on that, and maybe you can kind of explain to everyone just a brief idea of what the VEDR system is and how contractors were basically, running the routes and dealing with that prior to it, and what VEDR is going to look like moving forward, and when the integration of all that, when that's going to be a full requirement time-wise for some contractors that have tried to delay it or not get a jump on becoming compliant with that. So maybe you can kind of get us an idea with that.
You bet. Yeah. So as a big picture, as sort of a general rule, the safety technology of the FedEx world, it starts in line haul, and then it basically trickles down to P&D. And so the VEDR standard, and that, by the way, it stands for Video Event Data Recorder. And so that has been a contract requirement on the line haul side for a couple of years now. And the reason why, it makes perfect sense to me why FedEx is doing this. I mean, I would do it as well. It ultimately, as most folks know, FedEx is mostly self-insured. And so when there's a crash, it's FedEx that's paying. And so, they're financially motivated. Plus, everyone knows this, when a contractor crashes, and it's all over the news, right? No one ever says that Joe's Delivery Service, Inc. crashed. What do they say? FedEx crashed, right? We all know that. It's their logo in 8-foot letters on the side of the vehicle. So, they're motivated that way. Plus, FedEx, they're good people. They're human beings just like you and I. They don't want people to get hurt any more than you or I do. So they are triply motivated for safety. Financially, their branding, and just common decency. They don't want people, and it's real. People do get hurt out there. So they are tremendously concerned about that. But as far the VEDR system, number one, you can think of it as that, there are many times when there was no fault of the driver. Some other bonehead out there did something wrong, but it just boils down to he said, she said. But it's worse than that, because if it ever goes to court, what is it? It's the word of a soccer mom versus big bad FedEx Corporation, right? So, their lawyers, they know this. So inevitably, it could have been the other person's fault totally. But even though the driver is like, man, I didn't do anything. This lady did this or that, or this guy totally made this bonehead move and caused all this. They can't prove it. Well, with the VEDR system, the contract requirements will basically have a forward-facing camera and also a camera on the driver. That's the minimum contract standard, and that standard is going to be rolling out. In fact, it's already has there have been some early adoption areas that, basically in the New York City area, also Southern California, where it's already in there, and we're already there too. And that's going to be rolling out nationwide. The next phase is going to be in a couple of months, but it's going to go all the way through into 2020 in terms of like where you are in the nation. So you can talk to contractor relations people about when it will impact them, but it's going to hit everyone. It's going to be a contract requirement. But again, so this way FedEx will now actually have video evidence. Now, some people might have been concerned and say, well, does this mean that FedEx can start spying on my drivers? The answer is absolutely not. So I can't speak for other vendors, but as far as GroundCloud goes, I can promise you that FedEx will not be doing that on our system. Everything is just limited to the contractor, to the AO. So to the owner of the contract business and or any BCs that he or she gives access to. That can even be individually restricted. So that's highly restricted. But bottom line is, this is going to not only help FedEx, because now when it's somebody else's fault, now they've got video evidence to show that. Right now, when the driver has done what he or she should have done, now they can prove it. And so, this is going to be a nice thing. I heard an amazing statistic where I was talking to someone in FedEx, and a lot of contractors, because I talk to contractors all day long, and a lot of contractors really wish and want that FedEx would pay them more, right? We all understand that. It's like, they look at, but what I heard, I was talking to someone within FedEx, and really, really a nice person, and they told me this. They said, Dave, you need, just get your mind wrapped around this. In terms of preventable accidents, they told me approximately, off the record of course, but approximately how much FedEx spends in terms of these preventable accidents, because they're the insurer. And this person then broke it down to, it basically came out to something like, it was some incredible number. It was about $150,000 per contractor per year in terms of preventable accidents. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Think about that. Now, this person then said, imagine if we could just increase safety to the point where, if that number came down where, they weren't shelling out such mountains of cash in terms of these preventable accidents, then there really truly would be more. And this, at least according to this person, we're convinced that they would have a lot more money to pay to contractors. So this is how I believe this is going to help contractors, because the way the VEDR system works is not only are there two cameras on there, but it's automatically, at least our system is awesome, but FedEx has, not only are you going to have that for compliance on your contract. Now the good news is, when the contracting window opens, FedEx will provide an incentive of $780 per vehicle. And so, and by the way, we are the only company that I know of that can actually get the highest quality hardware and a certified installation that gets a 2-year warranty for less than that. So with our system, contractors will actually have money put into their pockets. And as far as I know, I mean, what we've seen in terms of looking at all of the other approved vendors there is that contractors actually have to pay more than that $780 up front. And I also mentioned before that, all of the other ones that we've seen are about $40 a month on the monitoring service. Just for the VEDR monitoring, we're $25, again, because of the integration. But FedEx also has 4 what they call key indicators. And this is basically, in order to be compliant, and if you're not compliant, what happens is that a crash deductible goes up to like 10 grand, okay? So we're talking big money here. You want to be compliant. And they define compliance by 4 key indicators. And they basically involve, and I don't know how much time we have here, I won't get into all of them, but what I would, Sure. So the four key indicators are that the cameras are connected and pinging and are operational. Our system handles that automatically. Number two, that when there is what's called a coachable event. So FedEx actually requires that when the system triggers, and the system triggers by a G-force event, and it could be as innocuous as the driver hit a pothole, or hard braking, or swerving maneuver, or even punching the accelerator. I mean, I don't know how fast a P1200 can really. I don't think it's doing 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, but hey, any sort or an impact, right? Any type of event, the system will automatically upload a 20-second piece of video, not to FedEx, but to an independent review board, which is in our system. These are our own people. That's why it can't be free. We got to pay people to do this, but they review and so they look at the video, and if it was a pothole, it gets dismissed as a nothing burger, and no one ever knows anything less about it. But let's just say that when that driver hit a pothole, the driver in the video is sitting there on their phone, right? Okay, now that's bad. Nobody wants that, because that's just a completely unsafe driving, and so not to mention illegal. So in that case, the video would actually, the event would get scored as, okay, this driver needs some coaching. They needs some safety training here. And as a contractor, if I'm a contractor, I want that. I want that to happen. Now, here's the thing. With all of the other systems, they don't know who's driving the vehicle. So one of the key indicators is that you have to identify the driver in X amount of hours or a couple days. And so any other system, the driver, the AO or a BC has to stop what they're doing when they get sort of they'll get an email, whatever. They'll have to stop what they're doing, got to go to their other portal, log in, look at the video, and they're, okay, there's that new driver. Yeah, what's his name again? Bill something, Bill Smith. Okay. And they have to assign that. And so they have a certain amount of time every single time that happens to identify the driver. What's super cool with our system is that we know who's driving, right? Because our system is all integrated. We know in advance, before the driver even leaves the terminal, our system automatically knows who's driving. So guess what? That second key indicator is automatically taken care of. You're guaranteed in our system to have that be a green thumbs up. Then, not with the other ones. The other ones, if you forget, you could be at risk of failing that key indicator. Number 3 is that you have X amount you've got like 3 days to finish a coaching session with that driver for whatever, they did wrong. In this case, my example, they were driving on the phone. Okay, so on other systems, you now have to assign, some sort of online training thing, and this is where it really gets to be a pain in the butt with other systems. You then, either you, the AO, or a BC has to start getting on the treadmill of going to that driver and saying, okay, Bill, you need to, when you get home, first of all, they won't even have an interaction with this guy until the next day. So that's day one. And they then have to say, okay, Bill, you're going to get this email or text, and it's going to be a link, and you're going to have to go to this website, log in, and finish this training or coaching, whatever, right? Now, if you're a contractor, you know how this is going to go, because now on day 2, okay, the next morning, Bill, did you finish the training like I sent you? Oh, something came up, family emergency, it didn't happen, right? And so what's going to happen is now it's like day 3, the next day comes around, and you're now basically in danger of violating that key indicator. So other systems, you're going to have to haul around basically a laptop with you at all times and grab that driver by the ear, drag them over, and stand over that driver while they complete that training session. I mean, that sounds like a horrific way of operations in my world. And for that, you get to pay $40 a month. That's insane to me. On our system, it's all integrated. What's really cool with the iPads is that not only do we geofence detect the same day when that, so imagine the same scenario. With our system, the driver comes into the terminal the very same day. We already know who it was. And when they shut the vehicle off, we detect that in our system. And up on the iPad comes that coaching the same day. That's awesome. Now we know that driver, good chance the driver's going to be like, I'm going home, right? I'm tired. I don't want to deal with this. Okay, fine. But guess what? The next morning when that driver goes to his or her iPad and logs in, and they will do that. They want their route. They want, that's the cheese at the end of the maze. They want that. But guess what? Pops up first right there is that coaching training right there. And it's captive, meaning they can't circumvent it. They have to complete it in order to get to their route. So they're going to do it. They're going to do it. And it's automated. So there's key indicator number 3 that's basically completely automated. And the fourth key indicator is about recidivism. So if you've got a problem with your drivers are doing the same infractions every, within 60 days, you can only have a percentage of drivers that are repeat offenders. And if you've got a lot of repeat offenders, then you will fail that fourth key indicator. Now, FedEx we don't report any of the individual key indicators to FedEx. All they get is a pass-fail grade for the contractor. That's it. And pass-fail is defined as that the contractor is meeting 3 out of the 4 key indicators. Doesn't matter which one. But get this, with our system, you're basically guaranteed to be meeting 3 of them at all times. In other words, unless you are beyond incompetent and beyond asleep at the switch, you're going to be compliant with our system because of the integration at all times. So I think that's pretty awesome. That's why our system is so much better. It's automated. There's no of this hand, got to do all this stuff by hand. No, there is interaction. There's the final part with our system is that a BC will just close it out. They'll just say, yep, and there's a comment box where they can say, yep, I talked to the driver. Bill understands that, he keeps doing this. He's going to lose his job. Good, closed out. So it's not that there's not any interaction, but it's minimized. It's so nice. And like I said, you're basically guaranteed to be meeting that the KI standard. And so you're not in danger of your deductible going up to 10 grand. But there's another area. But remember, for all of that, increased functionality and automation, our price is almost half. Again, it's because of the integration. But there's one other piece to that I want to talk about, and that is FedEx has raised the deductible for backing incidents to 10 grand for contractors. That's huge. And get this, more than 40% of all preventables are backing related. That's huge. So now basically contractors are on the hook for backing related incidents. And I wanted to do something about that to help contractors, and we did it. Here's how. When our VEDR systems are installed, we actually install them in such a way that we monitor every single backing event. In other words, every time your driver puts that vehicle in reverse, we get a signal. Why? Because first off, I thought it would be helpful just to get a statistic to see how often your driver is putting that vehicle in reverse gear. Because and then we can compare that to all different drivers and give that driver essentially a ranking, in terms of like how many miles they're driving, how many stops. We can show, for example, who is in the top 10 percentile of backing. And just to give people a heads up, maybe that new driver you hired is backing like a mad fool. Well, now you'll know. You'll have the opportunity to talk to that driver and say, dude, man, we got to talk about you're backing all over the place. But it gets way better than that. Because with our system, every time they back, we actually record a video segment. Now, we record it through the front-facing camera, but that's more than enough to tell what the situation was. Was this backing up to the belt? Well, of course they had to do that. Or was this pulling into a short residential driveway because the driver was too lazy and didn't want to hoof it up the driveway to bring those boxes to the door, which happens. We all know that. even though most contractors tell their drivers, don't do that, park parallel and walk up that driveway. But until now, they had no way to know whether or not their drivers were doing this. Well, now they'll know, because they'll actually have that video segment of, they're right at the house. And then we also record when they back out. So, and we also know that that is a residential stop. Get this, we can actually tell you when your drivers have either pulled into or out of a residential driveway. So this way, now the drivers are going to know that. Because why? Because, a BC can review that and say, dude, we talked about this. Here's an incident where you should not have backed. But get this, here's the objective of this. The objective is not to bash those drivers, but instead, they're going to quickly know that every time they back, it's going to be recorded. What is that going to make them do? It's going to make them think before they back, because they'll know that it's being recorded. And that's what we want. We want that driver to think, is this truly necessary? Or is there any way that I can situate my vehicle or do a maneuver or something that I don't have to back? And I think that's golden, and that's going to make a huge difference. Think about that. Every backing incident, 10 grand deductible. And it happens all the time. They back into mailboxes. They back into cars. They back into overhangs of homes, in basketball hoops. It's over 40% of all preventables are backing related. So this is going to be an enormous burden to contractors unless they have this system where it's going to get drivers to automatically think about, do I really need to back here? And so, already it's made a huge impact on the customers that are using it. And, it's getting those drivers understanding it's going to be recorded. It's getting them thinking ahead of time, and it's already bearing fruit. So I'm really stoked about that.
Yeah, no, it's an awesome thing that we can start to see these guys. And I will tell you, you mentioned that it was 40%. I've been in 2 small accidents in FedEx while riding along, training drivers, years ago, and both of them were backing up. And it's the same sort of deal with a basketball hoop. And what was the other one? The other one was like a little mailbox. And so it happens. Yep. And the thing is like, even as, you're trying to get people or get your drivers to say, hey, please don't pull into the driveway, pass it and back up. I know it takes an extra second, but I promise it'll be better to be doing it like that. That way you're pulling out, forward out of the driveway as opposed to the other way. It's just
right, exactly.
And so, and it really brings up the other point, that you mentioned a while back, is that these contractors are hardworking. A lot of people that are looking at coming into this think that there's, no effort to this thing at all, and that it's just all magically done. And one of the good points that you brought up a while back was that, the more automated that you have this business and your systems, the better it's going to be for your resale, but also the better it is for your own sanity while you're managing these things. Because, this is just one of the parts that we've got to deal with of, hey, you got to find the driver. Who was the driver in the vehicle? Oh, is this guy? Oh, we got to find Bob. Bob, did you do your training? Did you do your, the stuff to make sure that you're not going to do it again, and all these kinds of things like that. All these things take time, and a lot of people don't think about it. They just say, look, get the trucks, hire some drivers, let FedEx do everything else. And it's like, that is not the way that it ends up going down. And so I think a lot of this is like really illuminating on a couple of different ways that first, hey, there are some issues and things and hoops that we have to kind of jump through to manage these businesses successfully. And secondly, you've already got a solution for a good chunk of it, right? It's not like the silver bullet that just does everything, but my goodness, it's a great step in the right direction. You know what I mean? And so I think that's yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. And one thing that I wanted to bring up, because I know that it's, one of the couple of main things that you guys are doing is working with the VEDR system, dealing with the safety programs and whatnot, and then of course also the route optimization, which you just mentioned, that the drivers come in, they want it. That's whenever they're seeing, the prompts pop up that they need to do their safety training and whatnot. All those things are incredibly valuable. when you first started, that really wasn't on the thing. I think that the focus that I saw, again, from the sidelines years ago, because I watch a lot of people come and go in this industry because I've been around for, over a decade at this point. So the years are starting to stack up. And I remember whenever you first came up, the big focus was, route optimization. And now it's grown from there. So with where you are right now, do you think, and this is a little bit of speculation and just kind of chewing around some rumors and whatnot, but do you think that GroundCloud is going to be continuing to polish out and make the features that are there
Absolutely.
and the services that are there right now even better? Or do you also see
heck yeah.
something that's also growing? I think next year FedEx is going to do, the VEDR 2.0 system where you got to have 6 cameras, or God only knows what else they may dream up for us to be able to do. Again, this is a little bit speculation, but I love hearing different opinions and different rumors and thoughts and this kind of deal on what you think the future may look like for FedEx. And then, of course, if you think GroundCloud might be tagging into solving some of those problems, are you guys going to just keep doing the same things you're doing now, but, of course, even better?
Well, I mean, we've, I'm really excited to say that, I even, the last quarter of last year, I brought on another senior developer. This guy came from Google. I mean, this is, top shelf, full stack developer, and just saw the opportunity, just like as opposed to being a little cog in a massive company like Google, but now working for us. And so we are, there's let's just face it, we do have some other competitors that have seen us and been like, oh wow, there's a business there. So we do have some some copycats or some others that are trying for us. We've got such a head start on them, but critically, we're actually increasing the pace of development because, like I said, I'm bringing on more development talent in-house, not outsourced, but in-house, and we have an enormous pipeline of stuff. Now, I'm not going to get into all of it just because we do have those competitors now, and I don't want to reveal everything that we're doing, but I will say this, it will absolutely blow your minds in terms of, every other aspect that you could imagine that could be cloud-based and subject to automation is what we're going to be doing. So that just in a broad sense, everything to do with driver management, with payroll integration, with scheduling, we already do vehicle maintenance tracking and monthly maintenance reports, but every other aspect of P&D businesses that can be, and there's a ton of more things that we can do that we are going to be integrating in just to, and you know what, as we grow, we're not increasing the price either. And so in other words, the value of GroundCloud is already tremendous. I have people that literally say on a daily basis, like, you could charge so much more for this, Dave, and we would gladly pay it, But I want to get just as many on here as possible, and so we continue to raise the bar, and this is how we easily continue to keep ourselves differentiated from the competition. Is that like I said, our pace of development is increasing, and we are bringing on just layer after layer of incredible functionality that is going to go all that much more towards increasing the profitability and the bottom line for our customers. And as far as long term with FedEx, again, if you want to look at sort of the safety requirements, just look at line haul. That's always what they do. They start there, because these are big rigs that are going down the road at a high rate of speed. They don't crash often, but when they do, they're nasty. So, look at what's happening there, and, it's pretty reliable that whatever happens there as far as safety tech, it starts there and then comes to the P&D side. Although I will say, though, that FedEx does absolutely learn, like when they had the VEDR system on the line haul side, it's actually more stringent. There's more, these key indicators are much more intense on the P&D side. So, they do sort of up the ante when it does come to the P&D side. So I do see that there will be other technology requirements there, but we're also looking into going really far down. Well, not hopefully maybe even later this year, but we're also going to be doing much more like integration with the vehicle itself. With the VEDR system, we already are there, but we're going to go and take that to the next level. But also what we're going to do is we're looking into some pretty interesting technologies that really solve some pain points that I haven't even heard anybody even remotely speculate on. So I'll just give you that little teaser there, but leave it at that. But we're really stoked to, we're growing. I mean, I'm not kidding. Within the past 24 hours, I think we've got at least 10 contractors that have signed up with us. So the word's getting out, and just that, and it's all word of mouth. So getting really excited about that. And again, my fuel. My wife just told me recently she's never seen me work so hard, but it's not that. And I haven't even yet paid myself. That's kind of a funny thing. She's kind of like, can't we pay ourselves now? I've been taking the revenue incoming and pouring it right back into development, just because I think it's worth it. I love building that value for our customers. I absolutely adore. Like I said, my fuel, my pay is hearing contractors say, Dave, this has been such a game changer for us. This has changed my life. It sounds corny, but it's true, and like that's what feeds me, and I love that. And so, big picture, we'll be fine as we continue to grow like that. But I'm really excited about this year, and our customers are really going to see that as it is. We already are rolling out new functionality pretty much on a weekly basis. Some of them minor, some of them are larger, but we've got some massive stuff coming, and I'm really excited.
I really resonate a lot with the idea of you talking about how, even though it sounds corny, that you get a lot of this intrinsic sort of value from just the contractor saying that you're such a lifesaver and that you're really helping them out. And I think that also I think it separates us both, me, because I really enjoy the idea of either helping people find a great FedEx business and sort of being able to pick through and understand those concepts to be able to help find a better route bundle out there to buy. Same thing for trying to help out these guys. And granted, it's like the price doesn't always resemble the value of things, right? Like you're charging obviously far less than what people would be willing to pay. You're delivering a tremendous amount of value beyond that. Same thing for what I'm doing over here. So anyway, corniness aside, like I totally understand that. And I think, just like what you mentioned in terms of the original plan of marketing is like, hey, if we can just build something great and get it out there at least a little bit, it should spread from word of mouth. It's clearly happening with you guys growing. Obviously, we do want to try to get the word out even more so, just to help out contractors and be able to make that stuff easier so you can start to focus on other aspects of this business besides what seems to be trivialities, but are obviously much greater than that. So with that being said, definitely I'm intrigued with what you guys are seeing coming down the pipeline. I've got a couple ideas of my own. We'll kind of see how they all turn out over this year. I think 2019 is going to be a very interesting year for some of the changes that are coming down with FedEx. It's cool to be able to see you guys basically at the forefront of trying to, see these problems ahead of time, and then also trying to, solve them. So anyway, I think that's fantastic stuff. In terms of wrapping things up, is there anything that you kind of want to talk about that we didn't hit on, or any sort of aspects, or you think that we got a pretty good overview from where we are right now?
Well, I just as closing words, if anyone's seeing this and they don't have our system, just know that you can get an absolute, not only a free trial, but if you see this video through through Tony here, we're even willing to throw in your first month free. So even if you keep our system, but regardless, you pay nothing with us up front. Even if you go with the Sprint T-Mobile deal, you'll pay nothing for iPads up front, and they even have a 60-day evaluation time. So you can equip your whole fleet, and basically the only thing that you would potentially pay for is maybe some mounts and cases for the iPads, and most of that stuff's returnable as well. But you can truly test out our system risk-free, nothing up front, and literally give yourself a month to see how it goes. We also, and then if you don't love it, just send it all back. I will give this one caveat to that, and that is this: of all of the contractors that have done that, not one of them has sent it back and said, nah, didn't like it. So there is that, but I just want to make it clear that you can test out our system at zero risk, and you know what? We will help you every step of the way. If you feel like you're not very technologically inclined, that's okay. We did not, I knew absolutely from the get-go that if you had to be a geek like me to use our system, that we would face plant hard and totally fail. So, while we were developing this, my test was essentially a lot of times was to hand the iPad to my almost 75-year-old mother, and I would ask her, and she is absolutely not tech at all, but if she could do it and figure it out, I'm thinking, okay, if it's grandma checked and approved, then we've got a decent system here. So it's totally usable. It's something that you can dip your toe in the water and just start with routing and navigation just to start, and then go from there. And then you can start to layer on our system, adding safety training and trip inspections. And now the route, the full hardcore route planning, that's something you don't have to start off the bat. I didn't even mention the fact that with our system, you can totally cut all of your routes. You can define priority zones, define all of your loading areas, and then you can electronically share that to the terminal, and they will take all of that, put it into the vision system so that it perfectly matches. It's awesome. And the terminals, believe it or not, they love this because they can do this on their own time. Anyway, you don't have to do that on day one. Like, you could even set our system on day one if you wanted to follow the FedEx sequencing, just because if that's what your drivers are used to and expecting on day one, you can do that just to get going. And then, you can start basically transitioning at your own pace as you have us, and then even defining zones and loading zones and all that, and transition to that, which we recommend, again, because you're reducing your dependency on FedEx, which we think is just a best practice. No offense to them, but the less dependent you are on them, the more resilient you are when they go down. And then lastly, with our system, you don't need to do the VEDR system yet. So you can get that, your contracting standard might not be until later this year or potentially even early next year. So you don't have to do that right off the bat. And that's just something you can wait and know that you'll be getting the very best. But then again, you can order it. With our system, unlike the other guys, you can basically tell us when you would like that installed in your vehicles. And that's not the case with the other guys. The other guys, you got to wait until their team is like swinging into your area. And then you got to, jump through their hoops. But, call me old fashioned, but I actually think that you are the customer. So we defer to you. And, just wanted to throw it out with that. Check us out. If you know anybody that's using our system, talk to them. There's a number of Facebook groups that are just contractors, and if you go in there and just ask about GroundCloud, just watch what happens. It's awesome. You'll see like all kinds of people stepping up and just are just going to rave about our system. So I love it. So just don't have to take my word for it. Just talk to someone else that's using it, and they'll tell you. It's very rare that we ever hear a complaint, but you know what? If we ever do, it's usually just a misunderstanding or something, and we work alongside. And lastly, we don't accept suggestions; we beg for them, right? Because that's been the success of our company. So we listen, whether you're a small guy or a huge contractor. It doesn't matter. We know what's going to work, what's going to help out everybody, and so just a lot of people are really surprised how quickly we get those ideas and suggestions integrated. So we want to hear from you.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you guys are out there and begging for suggestions is really just, you don't really see that so much. People down deep, they really don't want the suggestions because that means they got to make another iteration of the software and this kind of deal. And I think that's also a thing that kind of separates you from, your competitors. Really, I almost have an issue calling competitors because I don't really see anybody else doing exactly what you're doing.
No.
I kind of see you.
No one has the integration we do.
Right. Yeah. I don't see that you really have a competition. The same thing, and no matter what you do in the world, people will see it and they'll kind of try to jump on and see if they can try to do the same thing. And if you don't have that sort of mentality of having that customer first as opposed to just making $1 or whatever, it's a bad spot. I've seen the same thing happen for me with me training people on how to understand FedEx routes and evaluate them and that kind of deal. There are other places that have popped up. They've come. A lot of them have gone. Because again, if you don't have a passion for training people or have a passion and patience to be able to take people from step one to where they need to be, it's no fun for them and they leave, and I don't blame them. You got other people that are sticking around. Same thing for you guys when it comes to dealing with this. If you don't have a passion to be able to chat with the contractors and find pain points and solve problems, then you're kind of always like a couple of steps behind. And so again, like to me, like I think about you guys really just almost having no competitor. It's not like I flipped a coin and said, "Oh, do I want to?"
No. In fact, right. I mean, really, in order to, I mean, there's so many things. There's so many things that we do that nobody else does. But I mean, I really truly believe that that's what folks are looking for is an integrated. We're one vendor that we do it all, and we do it. I mean, I have this corny analogy. It's like we're the Swiss Army knife of vendors, except every blade in our knife is the best. It's not like a crappy little, saw that's like, you'd never really want to saw anything with a Swiss Army knife. No, we are best in class in everything we do. Like, for example, in our fleet tracking, a lot of folks are got jammed up with these Fleetmatics contracts where, when you look at it, what service they're providing for a lot of money is like they're pinging your vehicle once every 30 seconds. What we do, we are recording not only location, but full telematics once a second. It's crazy. When I tell other people in the industry, they're like, "What? Are you kidding me?" Because it's expensive for us to do that. It's very expensive. That's why nobody else does it. But we do it because of the benefits it brings our customers. They know where their people are in real time. I mean, we even had there was an instance where a driver was carjacked, and we were even literally talking to police, and they got them and they rescued the driver. It was phenomenal. So. But also on a practical level, we have gotten drivers out of speeding tickets because our system's recording their speed and other info once a second. So when they are accused of speeding, and like I said, we have 3 documented cases where drivers were literally got out of a speeding ticket because our system proved that they were not speeding. It was basically just, peace officer just said, "Yeah, you were going too fast," and then, but we were able to prove it. Also, speeding complaints, those happens. Oh, these are these pain points that we solve. We can show, when someone says, "Yeah, your contractor was coming through, the neighborhood at 100 miles an hour," and then, we show, nope, they were right at the speed limit, perfectly fine. Also, for disputed deliveries, I mean, someone sent me a graph of their disputed deliveries, and it was like going up at high, and all of a sudden just literally went off a waterfall, and the guy just said, "Guess when we implemented GroundCloud?" This was a social media post. I love that because our system's so accurate. It's yet another pain point of solving disputed deliveries. They go away with our system. I love that. And also misscans. It's something that even the most veteran drivers struggle with. We've got a solution for that. Love it. So, even those veteran drivers that at first think, if they just think we're a glorified Garmin and they're like, "I don't need no stinking Garmin." Well, of course, we're not that. We're so much more. And then when they see that we've got a solution for that and so many other things that enables everyone to work together as a team, they always come around. And then they're like, "Yeah, this is really cool." They can just drive off the manifest. They don't need to put it in turn-by-turn mode. Our app is configurable all the way from total newbie, needs hold handing, turn by turns all the way, the full works, versus all the way down to that, 20-year veteran, knows everything, is just driving off a manifest. We cover it all. So that's why don't think of us as like a one size fits all. No, we have our system to the drivers is an amazing tool, but it's configurable based upon where they are. So I think that's another reason why we've been successful. We're not like trying to shoo everyone into the same mold, but yet every one of our services is truly best in class. And I got a lot of pride in my team and what we've built, and we've built the best system. And you're right, there is no direct competitor. We have the integration, everything is all working together, and we're just firing on all cylinders, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and there's definitely other people out there that will do one piece of that. They will deal with the safety aspects, or they will deal with the route optimization, right, and these kinds of things. But integrating all those together, it kind of makes you different. The competitor to the Swiss Army knife isn't a butter knife, right? It's like it's a different thing when it's not as integrated. And so, yeah, I really find you guys on another level, which is fantastic. I'm super excited to, try to get the word out and try to help with that even more so than what's already happening with what you're doing and the word of mouth. Where can people find you if they want to find out a little bit more, or go ahead and sign up with you?
Perfect. So what they should do is go to our website, which is GoGroundCloud.com, GoGroundCloud.com. And right at the top of that screen there is just a contact little button. And so if they just fill out a form, they will get a personal email from me that just, has what I lovingly refer to my wall of text. But it's basically, it has all kinds of info. It literally will tell them step by step how to sign up if they're interested in that. It will also give them links to different videos that they can just learn more about. They can see a video demo of the system. They can see different people talking about their experience with the system. I have another video in there a link that I'll send about, really getting into the specifics about our VEDR system. They want to learn about that. We have a whole YouTube channel. That's we update that every week or two with new content about, and it's mostly about how to use the system. New features, new functionality. We've got video-based training for drivers. We have videos that literally walk folks through when they sign up exactly how to do everything, how to configure the portal, how to set up drivers and routes and vehicles, that sort of thing. So, with all of that, I think is awesome. And we've got a lot of great feedback from that because people can see it, not just, trying to envision that, talking over the phone. But we do also have, great support that, and we work when contractors work. So that includes Saturdays. I mean, I'll sometimes I'm talking to contractors Sunday night at 10 p.m. because that's the only time they have. But you know what? I'm committed to that. And again, you'll be talking to me most of the time. I'm the owner, and so I can make a promise that we're going to stand behind. And it doesn't matter if you're mega or you're small. But again, go GroundCloud.com, click on the contact link there, and we'll get you all kinds of info about step by step what you need to do, and just, it's very easy, even to set up a completely free trial. But make sure that you mention that you were, you came here through Tony's system here, and then we'll arrange to give you your first month totally free.
Fantastic, man. That's we're lucky to have you here and being a part of this space and helping it grow as much as we all can. So want to thank you on behalf of the contractors and myself included, and all the clients that I have that hopefully we can introduce over to you. So thanks so much, Dave. I think we'll wrap up from there, and we'll talk to all you guys soon.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Be safe out there.